it got even tougher after Munich. There were frogmen out on the lake and all kinds of security that was in place, not just because of Munich. You've also got the Queen was here, and all kinds of heads of state and VIPs, people who would be targets for possible terrorists.
From northern New York, western Vermont, Ontario, Quebec, and beyond, this is Northwards from North Country Public Radio. Introducing you to people you should know, stories you should hear, and ideas that should stick in your mind. I'm Mitch Tyke, and our producer is Ethan Shanty.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steinecker and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. Isn't it embarrassing to be almost 40 and still have your voice crack? Question for me, not for you. You're not almost 40. You're older than that.
Older than that.
What are you drinking today, Mitchell?
I am drinking
a Tim's.
Yes, a Tim's.
Is that just liquefied Timbits?
Liquid donut.
I mean, it kind of is.
It's a vanilla sweet cream cold brew for which I had a coupon.
I've never had a cold brew in my entire life.
I think the cold brew thing is totally overrated.
Really?
Well, people believe. I mean, and it's true. Cold brew is a milder. It's a smoother kind of thing. But I feel like it doesn't taste enough like coffee. For me, the beauty of iced coffee is that it tastes like coffee, only cold.
Yeah, I am. So this is probably the second iced coffee that I've had in 10 years.
Also the second in 2 days.
So the second in 2 days. The other day I went to Dunkin' and I ordered a hot decaf, and they said, we can't do any hot products. So I said, okay.
We can't do any hot products.
That is what they said. I don't know. I don't know why. But so they gave me an iced instead, and
some cold toast.
And yep, cold unbuttered plain toast. And I was kind of like, coffee's supposed to be hot to me, and so the idea of having it cold makes me kind of makes my skin crawl. But now that I'm actually consuming it, it's pretty good, especially because it's hot out. But my
today it's like 59
today
degrees.
It's a little overcast, but my rationalization has always been, well, it's hot, so I'll have something that's scorching, and that'll make it feel cooler.
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
Does it hold up? I don't know, and I don't care. But
that's kind of the theory I have with iced coffee because
you drink it year-round.
I drink it year-round. It really, for me, I mean, on a cold winter day, I do enjoy sitting in front of a warm fire with a hot cup of coffee and letting the day kind of unfold in front of me. On a day-to-day basis, it has to really be below zero outside for me to want to drink hot coffee.
I'm a hot decaf coffee drinker all day long, all year round. I watched this spooky movie that would appeal to you and I specifically because it is about podcasting.
A spooky movie about podcasting.
A spooky movie about podcasting.
The recording is coming from inside the house.
Honestly, that's kind of what the movie is about. It was, so the conceit of this movie, there is this young woman who co-hosts a spooky stories podcast, and she's taking care of her ailing mom who is in her final days and kind of comatose.
Kind of comatose?
Well, at certain points in the movie, she appears to be moving, but is it the girl's imagination? Is it a haunting? You don't really know. Anyway, There's only 2 characters on screen in the whole movie, and the rest are just voices that you hear. So the movie is just incredibly sound rich. It's like, what?
It's like Frasier when he takes calls, wacky calls.
Kind of exactly like Frasier, except about a haunted podcast.
Sorry, did I throw you off there?
But even though you're not like a horror movie fan, I think that you actually might enjoy it because of just like the sound production. There's no jump scares, so to speak. Well, maybe there's one, but for the most part, the movie just rewards you for listening closely. It's not a movie that you can idly scroll on your phone while you watch. Nobody should be doing that with any movie, but let's be honest, we all do it. But yeah, it's just it really dials in on those quiet sounds and makes you go, wait, did I just hear that? Which is
It speaks to the intimacy of this medium.
exactly, and it's not something I've ever seen done super well. There's one other horror movie I can think of where a radio host is running his show while the apocalypse happens outside, and so there's not too many characters. It's mostly just phone calls. But this was just like, oh man, as a person who spends all day editing audio, I was just like entranced by the whole thing. Because
What is this movie called?
It's called Undertone. Yeah.
That's a good name.
It's a good name and it's a good movie. Like they clearly had like a budget of $10 to make this movie and every dollar is on screen.
So is this in wide release?
It is in wide release now. Yeah, I believe it's on HBO Max.
Oh.
If you have HBO Max.
Who is HBO Max?
Well, formerly just HBO, but then he got his doctorate and now he's HBO Max.
HBO to the max. HBO Max Headroom.
Do you remember the days where everything was extreme? Like
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, like all the Mountain Dew commercials, everything was extreme. X Games, of course. I miss that
Games,
era.
well, right. X Games, which are called X Games now, but people don't realize that X was for extreme.
Extreme.
Right.
I miss that era. We were a simpler country.
It was a simpler time, wasn't it?
Everyone just agreed that the late 90s to the early 2000s were extreme. What are we now? We have no culture.
We're overdone, I think.
Yeah, we're overdone.
Except at the Dunkin' Dunkin', where nothing is overdone because they can't provide hot products.
Well, I think they can now. I think it was
okay.
just a one-time blip.
What would they have done with Hot Pockets? It just would have been pockets.
Extreme pockets.
Extreme pockets.
I bet that there was a line of extreme Hot Pockets. Oh, hold on. I'm going to turn to our friend Google right now and find out.
If there wasn't, we should at least make it a band name. It's like regular Hot Pockets, only with jalapenos in them.
Well, so Google tells me that there wasn't an extreme brand of Hot Pockets, but Google AI says that there was Hot Pockets Fiery Hot Pepperoni. Oh, that's a new thing. Fiery Hot Pepperoni Hot Pocket. I was never a Hot Pocket fan. I've had maybe 5 Hot Pockets in my whole life. You?
5, 6, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the microwave equivalent of the pizza roll here in the North Country, right?
Yeah,
Only
absolutely.
smaller and maybe a little less dense. Actually, it sounds better that way.
But if you're trying to burn the absolute hell out of your mouth,
Yes.
there's no finer product than microwaved pizza products.
There's a whole riff that the comedian Jim Gaffigan does about Hot Pockets, and I believe one of the points that he makes involves scorching your mouth and having everything taste like rubber for the rest of the week.
The person that we're speaking to on the podcast this week,
Speaking of extremes,
they are an extreme
reporter for the Kingston Whig Standard.
Wow, that's hot.
WHIG.
Right. Burns your mouth when you say it. Okay, what are they doing?
It'd be funny actually if he was an extreme reporter because the newspaper is the Whig Standard, so the Kingston Whig Extreme.
Yeah, but he'd have to have a snowboard, maybe a helicopter on deck.
Right. We are talking about maybe one of the least extreme of the sports in this interview. Would you believe that we are talking about boats for a third consecutive week on Northwards?
I would. July is National Boating Month.
I think it's National Boating Safety Month, right? We're talking
It might be.
It probably is. Talking all about life jackets this week on Northwards. No, Garrett Joyce, we have had on this program
Yep.
before, probably, maybe a year and a half ago. But he got in touch at one point. This is funny, actually. He got in touch accidentally because he, I think, was typing MI into his email to email somebody named Michael, and my email address came up. There's a Mike or a Michael, I think, who's in radio in Montreal.
Last name also Tyke.
No, not as far as I know. But anyway, he wanted to give this guy a heads up, and in the end, it actually was a good heads up for us as well. This is this week, actually, as we're having this conversation, and the next couple of weeks, the 50th anniversary of the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal.
Not extreme.
Not extreme, certainly by modern day standards. It's funny because we talk about the 2 Olympics that have been held in Lake Placid. Oh, those are our 2 local Olympics.
Yeah.
But But the Summer Olympics, from where we sit now, were a couple hours away also. And in fact, the reason Gare Joyce was interested in this as a writer for the Kingston Whig Standard is that the sailing events took place in Kingston, which, if you look at a map, not really all that close to Montreal. But there was a whole separate Olympic village in Kingston.
Cool.
There were opening ceremonies in Kingston. And frankly, you know, with a strong set of binoculars standing on the shore in the U.S., you probably could have seen some of the sailing events. And so he's written and is writing a series of articles in the Kingston Whig Standard telling some of the interesting and often forgotten stories about the sailing events in the 1976 Summer Olympics. And with that in mind, we found Gare Joyce at home in Kingston. Thanks so much for joining us again here on Northwards.
Thank you so much.
Before we get any further, I am going to accidentally call this sailing throughout our conversation, but really in 1976, these events that we're about to talk about, they were called yachting, right?
It was yachting from its origins back at the very start of the games. There was actually a yachting competition in 1896, but there weren't enough boats in Greece. And so it really didn't start in earnest until 1900. But in every games since, running through to 76, it was yachting. And then about 20 years ago, they rebranded it as sailing. It was a sore point for many sailors who didn't like the elitist connotation with yachting. And many of them were amateurs and kind of hard scrabble and making ends meet. So it really didn't reflect the reality of the game.
They didn't identify with the concept of yachts.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, let's ask a very basic, or cover a very basic question here, because the 76 Summer Games were in Montreal, and there is water around Montreal. So why were these yachting events taking place off the coast of Kingston, if you will?
I don't know how reliable the winds and conditions were around Montreal. But it was really going back to original planning, back in the late 60s when the Olympic bid was being put together by the Montreal organizers. They were going to have to go off-site, and there was no going up the St. Lawrence. And Kingston is kind of as close to ideal, a hub for sailing in the Great Lakes on the Canadian side at the very least. So there was a long-standing yacht club in Kingston Yacht Club. There was a lot of history here in great conditions.
So set the setting for us, if you will, for people who aren't necessarily familiar with the geography there. Where were these events taking place?
The Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie courses out on Lake Ontario. There were different sites and courses set up going back to regattas as soon as their bid was approved. This is going to like 1970. Cork, the Canadian Olympic Regatta Kingston, really had not just a rehearsal, but yearly rehearsals going from 71 through 75. The big pre-Olympic race here in 75 in all classes was the real test. And in a lot of ways, it might have even been tougher because it was a more crowded field. When you get to the Olympics, for instance, the catamaran class was the tornado class. There were 15 boats, right? And in the pre-Olympic regatta, there would be 30. So all kinds of aspirants came out for the pre-Olympics. And in 75, it was pretty hellacious, high wind, gale force conditions. In 76, they actually had to call a day because of lack of wind, which is atypical. There were rollovers and lightning strikes in 75. So those who came to pre-scout the event and the area in 75 came away with a very different picture of what the conditions were going to be like.
Was there a lot of excitement about having these events in Kingston?
In Kingston, for sure. I mean, it was, an Olympics coming to a city the size of Kingston, any sort of world championship or something like that. It was occasion for the Queen to come, for all of the big Olympic brass, Lord Callanan, and the future IOC president, Juan Antonio Samaranch, was here. It was also, Kingston had an expectation of how the Olympics were going to play out. That kind of took an unexpected turn in 72 with the terrorist attack in Munich. So Kingston would have been one of the safer places on the planet for a city its size in the summer of 76. Sailing is a tough sport as far as spectators
I was
go.
going to ask that. Like, how did people watch this?
It got even tougher after Munich, in that there were frogmen out on the lake and all kinds of security that was in place, not just because of Munich. You've also got the Queen was here, and all kinds of heads of state and VIPs, people who would be targets for possible terrorists. So it was one thing that the experienced sailors talked about. A few of them had been in 72 and had been in Kiel, where the Olympic sailing was in 72. And they said it was night and day around the sailing athletes village before and after the attacks. And in 76, the sailors were able to get around town. They were arriving weeks before the games, when there was a certain level of security around the Olympic Village. They could get out in the community somewhat, but it was ratcheted up with the games, and they were a little inside the bubble for the duration of the games.
Well, and so for people who wanted to watch, whether you were a VIP like Queen Elizabeth or Juan Antonio Samaranch, were they watching from boats out on the lake, or were there places on the shore that you could see with binoculars?
Yeah, so the Queen was actually out on the water in her boat. Spectators were generally seeking high places along the shore and working with binoculars and telescopes and the like. Very limited who could get out and have a line of sight close to the course. So that was kind of frowned on. And as far as a grandstand or something like that, no, people were on the roofs of the yacht club. I don't know if it provided much of a view for those in the penitentiary down at the waterfront.
Well, and even in perfect conditions, sailing is not a great spectator sport.
It's hard to track.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that those in the race and on the course have a great vantage point at all times. They have to rely instinct. And back in those days as well, there wasn't the level of telecommunications. I think it was anyone's guess exactly who was where at any one time out on the course.
Where did the athletes stay?
They stayed in residences on the Queen's campus. I was talking to the one sailor from the Cayman Islands. the first athletes ever to compete for the Cayman Islands, which was population 15,000 at the time. And this
And they were
fella,
very amateur status.
they were seat of the pants, hanging on by their fingernails. And they hadn't even sailed their class of boats until like 3 months before the games. The one sailor, Carson Ebanks, that I spoke to, he told me that when they checked into residence, they were the first people in the residence back. This is, I think it was, the games were starting July 18th, and they checked in June 21st, I think. So they were fully 4 weeks in advance. And when they got to their room, the student that had been staying there had left one book in the room, and it was Leonard Cohen's Beautiful Losers, right? Which considering they finished 28th in the 28 boat field, was kind of read into that what you will.
Well, and you paint this picture of them sitting down to eat in the dining hall that would hold eventually 500 people, and the two of them are there as though it's a scene from The Shining.
Exactly. There were dozens of people working in the kitchen and around the building, and God knows there were Mounties and armed guards, and there were two lonely Cayman sailors who were in town for their first ever international competition. It was a little spooky for them, I have to imagine.
Well, and spoiler alert, they actually did well in a couple of races, or moderately well, and in the end, they capsized in their last race.
They did. And the two sailors, Jerry Kirkconnell and Carson Ebanks, are the two. It was a bit of an argument on the boat whether they would try and finish the race or not. And Jerry won out, and they headed to shore. They took a DNF. Carson wanted to keep going. They both expected that Kingston would be their Olympic debut, and they were playing a long game with the hope that they would compete at other Olympics representing the Caymans. Carson was 20 and Jerry was only 18 at the time. And sure enough, the boycott of 1980, Cayman Islands joined the US and a host of other nations that boycotted the Moscow Olympics after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. But Carson did stick around, and he competed in LA. Jerry felt the call of family and walked away from international sailing. But just the reaction of Jerry, he was so disappointed with the 28th place finish, considering the Cayman Islands issued an Olympic stamp featuring their boat on it. But
I gather it was kind of a mixed bag for the home team as well. Tell us about how the Canadian teams fared in these games.
So the one fella that I interviewed and wrote about, and whenever you're doing something of a retrospective nature, it's hit and miss who you're going to be able to track down. And when you're talking about 50 years, many have shuffled off the mortal coil. So you're taking your chances tracking down people. The one fellow that I was able to track down, Sandy Riley, was a Queens grad. He was a law student at the time, and he won the first race in the Finn class. It was his highlight moment. That was the single Canadian win in any class. They had boats in all six classes. There was one sailor, Hans Fogg, deceased now. He was a veteran sailor back in '76, and he'd already won a medal going back to the '60s for his native Denmark. He was the best Canadian hope, and he came up just short, just finished off the podium. Otherwise, the Canadian team was mostly young sailors like Sandy Riley, who finished eighth. He was in the hunt. He had one race that went down as the equivalent of a false start. Again, he couldn't quite hear the gun at the start, and it was a bit of mayhem out on the course with security around the Queen's ship where she was viewing from. I think that it was regarded as a building experience. Eventually, Hands would get another medal for Canada at a later games, but he was the one that everyone was banking on, and it did not come to pass.
Do I gather there were separate opening ceremonies in Kingston as well?
Yes, it was kind of low key with local high school students carrying an Olympic torch and lighting a flame along the waterfront. So yes, there was a ceremony the day after the opening ceremony. Most of the sailors went to Montreal for the grand opening on the Saturday, and then the Sunday they were back here marching about the parking lot beside the club in Portsmouth, little double century old town, a village, actually, the village of Portsmouth is what it is, that overlooks the Kingston Penitentiary, which was a going concern back in those days, but closed down a few years ago, and now is a tourist destination and used as a set for practically every prison movie that comes out in Hollywood.
Is there any evidence out there still? I mean, are there historical markers or anything that someone who has no idea that the Olympics played out in Kingston might encounter?
There is one weather-beaten sign on a very busy street by the harbor, just down the hill from the penitentiary. It stood the test of time. It's faded and a little splintered with the original, 70s graphics. It's seen better days. It certainly looks 50 years old. God knows it's absorbed a fair bit of the elements and wind and whatnot, but it's kind of fitting. I do hope they do something to protect it. I don't know what you could do at this point, if you could house it in plexiglass or something like that. There are a number of events here in August, so actually a little after the actual 50th anniversary, that will be staged, and a lot of the sailors, survivors who can make the trip. Sandy Riley is going to be here for one. John Osborne, a British sailor who I wrote about, who was a gold medalist in the tornado class. He'll be here as well. But we'll see where it goes. There is a lot of elite sailing that goes on in youth classes, North American championships, and all the like. There's always sailing going on in and around the harbor here. I don't know exactly if they have plans that there'll be a kind of sail by of the course, but to be seen. Sail Canada, the National Association, is staging a whole slate of events to mark the occasion.
You've been writing about sports for a long time. Have you written much about sailing before?
I knew you were going to ask that. I've written a couple of sailing stories over the years and edited a couple others. Canada actually chased the America's Cup at one point, and I remember having to edit a writer. This is when Australia was the America's Cup holder, and so Canada actually had to go to Australia to compete for the America's Cup. So I handled that as an editor. I did do a profile of a fellow named Derek Hatfield, died about 10 years back, who was a Vendée Globe racer, the solo around the world races. He was a hard luck case. He actually went upside down 3 times in the Straits of Magellan. I mean, it's bad going upside down anywhere, but the Straits of Magellan would just be about the worst place. And so he had to repair a broken mast in Terra del Fuego. So I did do a story on him, a profile of him years back, and I just know that I don't know that I would have trusted him with grocery money, let alone. And he was an ex-RCMP officer as well. I don't know if he actually worked the games here in '76. He could have, but that I haven't written a whole bunch of sailing, but it's an arrow in the quiver.
Well, and a piece of sporting history that I think might surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm writing the 75th anniversary stories. So this was my best shot to really pad my sailing portfolio in my body of work.
Well, Garrett Joyce, thanks so much for sharing these stories with us, and we will share the newspaper stories with the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mitch.
Garrett Joyce is a reporter for the Kingston Whig Standard in Kingston, Ontario. There's a link to some of his articles, the ones that are out now, about the 50th anniversary of the sailing events at the Montreal Summer Olympics. Those events took place in and around Kingston. You can find that link at ncpr.org/northwards. Ethan Shanty, speaking of sailing,
Christopher Cross.
Thank you very much.
Is that what you were going for?
That was exactly what I was going for. Is there any duller song in the world than Sailing by Christopher Cross?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because yesterday I was telling Bill Hanel, Director of Digital Services at NCPR, that I'm working the rest of this week from Rochester because I am going to be attending a concert. This guy's name is Joe. DJ-O is his his moniker. He played Steve Harrington on Stranger Things.
The End of Beginning.
Exactly,
Joe,
End of Beginning by Joe. And I was describing to Bill his sound. I said his first record is like this dark synthwave kind of stuff.
You have played Joe for me in the past.
Yes, I have. Yeah. And so, but Bill didn't know him, so I was telling him about his sound, and I said that his new album is like modern yacht rock.
Yeah.
And Bill said, like Christopher Cross? And I said, no, not like Christopher Cross, because I don't hate it and it doesn't put me to sleep. But in that same sort of vein of music, of like, it's easy listening and it's appropriate for everyone, and it could be on the radio at any time of day. Yacht rock is that like late 70s to like early 80s. It's sort of like a 10-year period of light, easy listening rock.
Toto.
Like Toto. But Joe's music is very good.
Well, but of course you would think yacht rock with Christopher Cross because sailing.
Right,
sailing,
exactly.
Yachts. And as we heard in this interview, up until recently, the sailing events at the Olympics were actually called yachting.
And Christopher Cross was the officiant for all of the events.
Absolutely right.
You know what song I hate worse than sailing? Run Like the Wind.
Oh, my God.
God.
No,
what?
Ride Like the Wind.
Ride Like the Wind.
Yeah.
Whatever.
To be free again.
What was it about Christopher Cross that made him a sensation? You lived it.
I was just going to say.
I didn't, so I'm asking.
Well, and the thing about it is, do you know what Christopher Cross looks like?
I do.
Yeah. Well, see, I would suggest that even if you didn't, when you listen to Ride Like the Wind by Christopher Cross, you would immediately have an image of what Christopher Cross looked like anyway in like 1981, and you would be absolutely right.
Christopher Cross is the only guy that looks like Christopher Cross. Am I wrong or am I wrong?
Did his friends call him Chris Cross?
They must have.
They might.
Crossy. They called him Crossy. Yo,
when he played
Crossy.
hockey. Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, let's close it.
All right, do that.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. Stop.
Sorry, I'm the backup singers on Ride Like the Wind.
God, I hate that song. Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Anna Williams-Bergen is our digital project specialist. Bill Hanel is our director of digital services, and Christopher Cross, mega fan. To find out more about this show and to make a donation in support of all the things that we do, you can head to ncpr.org/Northwards. And don't forget, if you want to reach out to the show and suggest topics for future conversation, email Mitch at ncpr.org. This is NCPR North Country Public Radio.
It is the night. My body's weak. I'm on the run. Too tired to speak.